Hello, my name is Sen Cheng. I am the PI of project A14. We know from many experiments that extinction learning is strongly context dependent, and we also know that the hippocampus is required to mediate these effects. By contrast, the initial acquisition learning is much less dependent on the context. In my project, we would like to use computational modeling to understand the mechanisms underlying these processes. We will ask three main questions. What makes extinction learning strongly context dependent, while other forms of learning are less so? What distinguishes cues from contextual information in extinction learning and learning in general? Why is the hippocampus required for context dependence? Previous answers to these questions all have some difficulties accounting for some important results. I therefore propose new answers in this project. Previous reinforcement learning models did not succeed at this. However, these models provided only a small number of discrete inputs that represent predefined cues or context at a single time point. For instance, a binary input variable indicated whether a cue is present or not. By contrast, we will provide high-dimensional inputs from the present and past time points. These inputs will be recorded by a microphone and a camera. The higher dimensionality of the input and the input history, we believe, will be able to account for renewal. First, I hypothesize that acquisition learning and extinction learning are driven by the same mechanisms. Differences in behavior come about through the difference in the sequence of experiences up to those different learning phases. Second, the difference between cue and context is learned. That is, they're not a priori different types of stimuli. Third, the hippocampus is required for context dependence because of its role in storing episodic-like memories, not because it represents context. We will test these hypotheses using computational models and robotics. We will implement a reinforcement learning algorithm using a small epoch robot. The first experimental paradigm that we will model is fear conditioning. The model will learn to acquire the association between a cue, such as a tone, and an unconditioned stimulus. Then we will extinguish this association using the same learning algorithm. The model allows us to investigate in detail the weights that the algorithm learns for different sensory inputs. Inputs with strong weights will drive a behavior response upon presentation, whereas inputs with weak weights, that is the contextual information, will not drive a response by themselves. Nevertheless, they will influence future behavior, which become visible only after extinction learning and the return to the original context. With our model, we will be able to study many other learning paradigms as well, including contextual fear conditioning. We will also study what happens when certain model components are removed, in particular the hippocampus. Our model stores inputs from past time points, which is a rudimentary model for episodic memory. This memory facilitates offline learning, consolidation, if you will. Without it, learning is less efficient and not context dependent. I look forward to applying our new framework to study the mechanisms underlying context-dependent extinction learning. Bye-bye.